Hi, I'm Jelle.
Hi, I'm Gerben. So, Jelle, there's a lot of buzz around AI and we hear a lot of things about ChatGPT.
Correct.
And maybe you can shed some light on some practical examples and how we can use it, because it's quite a broad topic.
It is.
Right?
It is a very broad topic. It's so before I dive into like the practicalities, I want to share like my personal history, if that's okay. So when I started working in software development, which is let's say a slight bit after you did, I came into a company and said, we are going to focus on cloud development. Cloud development. That's the next big thing. That's the hypey one. Any developer that's not working in the cloud is going to get left behind. And I was young. I was like, sure, okay, I'll learn what the cloud is and I'll do that. And I thought, okay, so it's very easy to predict the future in software development, because the cloud is actually, it's gotten really big. We work in the cloud every day. I mean, I do. I know you do.
Correct.
So then the next big thing came along, and I was like, and I know you got excited for this one too. I was like, blockchain, let's go. And I'm not saying that blockchain has failed or that blockchain hasn't made some really awesome things possible, but we can all agree that the kind of, the hype buildup was the same, but the payoff was different, right?
Maybe all the promises, or if we go into that discussion, I think we can record another session why blockchain failed and what the promises and premises were of the blockchain.
Right.
But I get your point. So not every suspected hype is actually going to do something.
So another hype thing I was really excited for after I overcame my blockchain disappointment was IoT, which I think it's doing a lot of things. I'm not sure where if we ever do like a IT hype ranking where it will fall, but I think this is another one where like many developers can work perfectly fine without even knowing what IoT means. But for those developers that do work in IoT, it's the big thing. And now we have AI, which I think, to be fair, it's actually older than all the other examples I've given, because AI has been around for, from before it beat Kasparov in chess. So
in the 1950s or so they started with it, and actually a nice story, in 2002 already I started then a study called Technical Artificial Intelligence, and it was really like a few people did it and all kinds of science was about it, but people thought, okay, nice science, but will it ever going to happen?
Yeah, so I don't think anyone is saying that now. AI is like, if you open any kind of news feed, if you talk with people in the street, AI is big and everyone knows about it. Most people focus on ChatGPT, but for in our community, we know a lot more stuff that is happening right now. And the build-up has been a while. We knew it was coming, but so I was kind of wondering: is this going to be like the new cloud, or is this going to be just IoT? So some people are working with AI, but most not. Most won't. Is this a new blockchain where like it's so cool, but we're not seeing any? We don't see practical use for it so often. So I got to thinking, and before I think, I like to dive into stuff. So if you say AI today, you say ChatGPT. If you say ChatGPT, you should say OpenAI.
Correct.
So there's a nice like history of OpenAI where they keep promising more and more and more. GPT-1, GPT-2, GPT-3, GPT-4. So what's your practical experience with GPT in the software field?
So for the GPTs, at the point that it released, so I immediately went into the website and used it, and I see some really practical usage for it. So one of the most cool things is not the things that it generates, but what I really like is that it really seems to understand you. So it's not on the answers that it gives, but in understanding of your context. And even if you type a sentence completely wrong, it still gets the gist of the content.
Yes.
I mean, previously, a few years ago, there were all kinds of chatbots, and the only thing that they could do is ask some stupid questions, and they didn't really understand you. So that's where I use it, and I see really practical use in not only, you can use it as a tool, so as a tool for your work, and the other thing is what I really like is to combine it and to use ChatGPT and give it some actions and to combine it in what's called more like autonomous agents. So you can send something off and you can give it a task. But one thing I also want to add, you mentioned OpenAI. I followed them a long time. And the first thing that I saw of them was in AlphaGo. And when I was really amazed about them, it was when they beat a professional Go player, because that Go, the Go is a game.
Yeah, I just mentioned, I think Deep Blue beating Kasparov, but like chess is, I'm going to piss off a lot of people, but chess is child's play compared to Go, at least if you're going to solve it. So.
At least in complexity and how many moves you should think in advance. And that's always been like the pinnacle of human mind, so it's not about calculating moves, but it's about understanding and building patterns. And there's a really nice documentary also about it, but that was the first time that I saw that company and saw what they were doing. So so for it to be a like we see, I have a nice slide here where we see you can have incremental growth. Mm-hmm. A lot of software developers and a lot of businesses are working on incremental growth. It's good. It's necessary. So you're doing the same thing everyone else is doing, and you're offering it to the same people, but you're doing it more or slightly better or slightly faster, which is important. That drives the economy. Mm-hmm. But sometimes people are like, well, I could do something different and give that to the same people, or I could do this, but I could sell it to a whole new group of people. I could get, people walking the streets playing Pokemon Go that would never touch video games. That's like an evolution. That's like interesting. But for something to be truly revolutionary, it needs to do both. And I think we're coming into an era where maybe we're having software developers have their work automated in increasing ways, where we'll leave software developers to have to do something else. And that sounds like we're being automated away, but I think it puts us in a position where we have to do a lot of different things all at once, because the efficiency is possible. What you were saying with all the tooling. So I think it is. There's a lot of cool AI tools and AI resources, but I think the ones where we're truly that are truly going to affect every developer is the ones that are actually going to assist or even take over parts of our job. Yeah, I completely agree. And also what I like about your graph is the revolutionary part. So I told you, in 2002 I started to study, but what I think now is happening is like the perfect storm. So everything now aligns. I mean, we have enormous amounts of compute in the cloud. Right. We have enormous amount of data, and we have all kinds of scientific breakthroughs in the models. So one of the things that I can still remember is when I first heard about generative AI. So even before ChatGPT, years before, guy Ian Goodfellow, he created the so-called GANs, so generative adversarial networks. And that was the first time that I said, okay, so AI can even learn from itself by playing games against itself, and the things that could generate, that was enormous. And that began all the deep fakes and everything, and started a whole revolution.
Right, yeah, deepfakes. So you're not actually sure whether this is us doing the talk or maybe two different people.
You don't know.
It's possible. So what I find interesting is, I don't know if you know this beautiful graph, but the peak of inflated expectations, possibly that's where we are now. Surely that's where we are with a few of AI's key high notes at this moment, where we're like, oh, this is so cool. Games can learn from AI can learn from itself, beating games, and then it doesn't impact people in the actual world yet. But this is a graph over time, so the expectations now are high. But maybe in the past, have they been higher? So I'm trying to find out where on this beautiful graph can we find ourselves in regards to AI. Are we actually hitting the plateau, possibly? So on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, sure. I can see people being AI assisted during their everyday software development. On the other hand, I can sometimes see people do something like prompt injection, or where I'm like, Yeah,
all kinds of new possibilities.
if you can manipulate your AI this easily, that's a problem, right? And that feels like inflated expectations. We can't expect AI to actually deliver if you can manipulate it with just a few prompts.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where we are. I'm not saying that, but I am saying I am sure that we are somewhere on this graph. AI is going to be normalized, I think. It's going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 1 year. People are like, how are you going to do your job as a software developer if you're not AI assisted? I'm pretty sure of that.
Maybe you don't even know that you are, but yeah, I'm doubting if this graph is even true for something like AI. But that's purely more my vision.
Interesting.
I see it more as a evolution of the biological human. So it's a step in our evolution, and I'm not really the same as Kurzweil in the sense that I think that there is something like a singularity. But what if this is another step in evolution, and then you can throw this graph, because then the peak is exponential. And
if we're reaching the singularity, count me disillusioned. So I think it works.
Okay, maybe you're in the disillusion then.
But that is a different take, which I had not considered while putting up this graph. But I'm glad I triggered it in you. Because this is the first time where all the other technologies I mentioned, Internet of Things, cloud, blockchain, that's not something that's relatable to humans.
Correct.
Problem solving, that's the most human thing I can think of. Well, maybe except, the children TV cartoon hugging and friendship phrases. But problem solving is something that is basically why we have not automated like 90% of the things that might be automated.
Yeah, maybe creativity and other kinds of things.
Well,
things that we see sparks of in AI.
I have used ChatGPT to generate some children's bedtime stories, so let's not say that it's not creative. Yeah, I mean, it did it better than I could.
Yeah, there's also that some people argue, is it creative or is it just using all the human data, all the knowledge? Can it create something out of itself?
Yeah,
that's
and that's of course when AI starts doing things, we're like, well, it's not actual intelligence that because an AI can do it. So I think if it can generate bedtime stories, even if it can't generate anything new, but I haven't seen it before, I would call that creative.
Yeah, okay, that's
so
also a nice.
There's three things where AI is impacting work possibly, and that's like the data sciencey side, where we're like, okay, we have a lot of data, we're going to teach a model to work based on that data. That's been around for a while now. That's like, it's called data science for a reason. That's hard work. I can understand why it hasn't taken off, but it's important because it's the basis for everything we're talking about.
Yeah, so I think in most of the companies, data science is now a crucial part, right? Finding patterns, finding in lots and lots of information and data, finding patterns.
I said it's hard, but with stuff like Azure AutoML, it's not as hard as it used to be.
Correct.
So the other one is, you have generation and indeed understanding, where I think a lot of I have seen the first auto-generated user stories where like I don't want to type all this out, throw it into ChatGPT, this is what it has to do, but like website content or even pieces of code, all that kind of stuff, it can be generated. It's going to be a lot faster than humans. And you can also put that into a process. You mentioned that before. Yeah. If you manage to automate the creation process fully, where you're not, have to type it manually into ChatGPT to get some content, which is fun, but maybe not the most, business-proof way of generating content, then this can be very powerful. And I think this is where we, as software developers, might interact with AI. I mean, it's possible that you'll never have to do this, but it's very possible that you will have to.
I'm also very curious, in like 5 years, when most of our content that we generate is AI-generated content, from which data set are new AIs going to learn? Are we going to feed them their own data?
I would suggest that I have seen ChatGPT use some stock phrases where I'm like, you're giving yourself away. I hope that we do indeed keep generating content as humans. Maybe that's going to be like a very important part of being human. We're getting very philosophical. So the other one where I think I mentioned it before, every developer is going to get, well, either you're going to interact with this, or you're going to have a hard time, and that's being AI assisted.
Outpaced by others, maybe you use it?
Very well. Let's say maybe someone is really good, but I think that the AI is using the entirety of software development experience to assist you. They're probably going to be better at it than most developers. So stuff like co-pilots, but also the ChatGPT can generate code for you. I think I agree with you. I find the more interesting sides where you take some code and you ask ChatGPT or some other model. What do you think of this? What could I improve?
Yeah.
Do you see any potential bugs or security problems? Or that's more interesting, because generating code, that's fine, but it might save some time. But stuff like that is actually really powerful. So that they're using AI for code reviews,
explaining things, analysis. Also, I think it's wonderful for things like refactoring. I just generated some basic API, and then ChatGPT generated a name for that, and then you just say, okay, I want to change the name of this API, and that's what I said in the first half of this talk, is that I really like the fact that it really knows your context. So if I say change this name, then everything of that snippet stays the same, and the name is changed. So
yeah,
and I can see that kind of functionality also be integrated in your IDEs. I mean.
Yes, and it's ChatGPT starts to act like something of like a mentor or something. It's like
that's also nice.
Like a very, very powerful rubber ducky, where you're like, okay, I can actually converse with you about my software development choices.
Yeah. And one side step, do you also ask things like please, and can you do this for me, like you would in the human?
Yeah, well, I'm polite, but I don't think it's really necessary.
No, but I find it very curious that you almost do it like automatically. That you're, because it can interact in a human-like way, you also
it's
show
like
human decency.
It's like bringing back the shopping trolley. If you're not saying please to your AI, are you actually a nice person? So this is where I think everyone's going to be impacted, which is great, because I loved it, because we already had like the autocompletes in Visual Studio and stuff like that, but this is just next level, where you're like, okay, I need this. I can do without autocomplete in my IDE, but I need this if I want to stay at a competitive level. Right. So in Azure, because we're a Microsoft company, there's actually three kinds of well, the examples I gave, they translate to three kinds of resources. So I have a beautiful play icon with a beautiful AI robot-y thingy here, which is basically plug and play. I want to use a resource, and I want to, usually an API call, and I want some AI thing. I have input, I want output. So that's the cognitive services. Easy. Mm-hmm. Everyone can use that. But it can be really powerful. So like for stuff like translations, I find this invaluable. But you also have the actual writing of models, which I find really hard. I love it. I have some talks in the history of this series on actual machine learning in Azure. It is awesome. It's really powerful, but it is a it's not very easy for a company that isn't doing this to just in 2 weeks go, we might try this as well. Whereas cognitive services, if you can make a call to the cloud, you can just plug that into your application.
Yeah, with those models, I think that's one of those points also from the perfect storm, is that what you see is that some really powerful models are getting open sourced, and there is a lot of work in building a good and decent model. You see it with ChatGPT,
yes.
But some time ago you also saw it with computer vision, models like YOLO and everything that really make it like plug and play. And if you want to develop your own model, what I see more is that we are going to tweak or input or give data to existing models, and
to like contain a container within that model, like this
feed
is
my some expert knowledge.
Yes, this is my part of your model where it's slightly different but the same.
Yeah, and even AI is generating their own new models. I mean, why not?
Why not indeed? well, a potential number of reasons, but it is. I think it is very, very possible. So the final one is where I think okay, Azure also does this quite well. It's not just press play and you're done, but it's also not as hard as creating your own model or challenging existing models where we're like, okay, I need chatbots, I might need some cognitive services to do some stuff. I need to configure the chatbot, I have to connect my own data bank, I have to do some pre-work where I have an actual data bank the bot can use. But this is also very possible, and this is for me the one where I'm not sure whether this is in the whether this one is in the hype phase or whether it's just like IoT. Like if you're gonna use it, you're probably already doing it and it's okay, but it's not part of the AI hype. So
yeah, but it's more using tools, AI in a normal data workflow, and then at some point you ingest some AI. At other points you have some normal transformations, and
yeah. Well, there's a lot of possibilities, so I feel confident saying of all the stuff we have in Azure, some of it is going to be very useful and everyone is going to keep using it, and some of it is going to disappear quietly. I'm not completely sure which is which, but I have made my predictions here. So finally, I think it's really important, as a software developer, I tend to want to deliver quality work. It's very easy to deliver quality work if you know what you're doing. But we are now, AI is new. Well, no, it's not new, but this phase of AI is new. Yeah. So a lot of people are going to do the, wow, look at what it can do, let's push this to production, wow, and forget about things like privacy, security, all kinds of dangerous, maybe even costs, all kinds of dangerous decisions. So that's where I think we should really step it up quickly, because that's a problem. Any final thoughts about where we stand with AI at the moment?
No, I think we have done a lot of also philosophical discussions, and you gave a nice overview of at least what is possible, and give some more insights into AI and more the practicality. And I think from there on people can try and experiment themselves.
Yeah. Well, if you're interested in learning more what Microsoft is doing with AI, you can check out the build from a few weeks ago, because it was almost completely AI. And thanks so much for watching.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.